the Luminous Possibilities Podcast. We offer a diversity of perspectives from many fields of medicine, esoteric and ancient wisdom, and subtle energy, arts, and sciences. Find deeply fulfilling pathways for co-creating yourself, life, and human communities around you. Find inspiring attunements to your own optimal living roadmap, true authentic self, and the most radiant frequency for living life to the fullest. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Keenan White, your host of Luminous Possibilities, and I'm here with Danielle Kort. She is a transformational soul coach, and today we're going to be talking about creativity and the surrender to the creative process and Danielle's journey and the work that she's doing into the world. And creativity is a pretty big topic, so we're gonna wrestle with the boundaries of what creativity is, which there really are none. So we're gonna find some direction and find, just some fun ways to share with you to the rest of the audience. What's happening. So hi, Danielle, welcome.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
So yes, tell us a little bit about yourself, perhaps, and your story, and how you sort of became a transformational coach. And I know your roots go back into the East Coast and New York, and you spent some time as a fashion designer. And I find that to be like quite the interesting lead into the work that you do now and where you're finding yourself to be. So if there's even a pre-story, take us there. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Go there. So, when I was a young girl, I was uber creative and outgoing and friends with all the kids on the playground. I would, play with the boys and soccer. I'd play with the girls in the monkey bars. It just depended on what I was inspired to do that, any day. And then I went to a new school in third grade, and somehow it was like all the kids already had cliques, and it seemed like I couldn't make friends. And whether I could or not, I made a story of it. I was like, well, people obviously don't like me. Something must be wrong with me. And, before that, at my old school, which I loved and missed, I was an avid drawer, and I would, draw these really cool creations, and teachers would stand around and watch because I had such detail to my art, and it was just really flowing through me. Well, I got to this new school, and I remember a time when we were all, drawing, making Valentine's Day stuff, something like that. And I put something under the paper in order to trace it because I didn't feel like my own creations were good enough anymore. So I literally traced it to make it perfect. And that's, recalling that story helps me understand when I started on like a path of like needing to be perfect or needing to be something other than I am. And so this kind of took me on a path to, middle school, which was a really hard time for me. I mean, I will say traumatizing. We make our own world, like we create our own world from within. So I know it had to do with my own thoughts and low self-esteem. And that was, that's an ancestral thing. Maybe it was something I carried through from other lives, but I was dealing with it. I was not confident, and I didn't have, that same self-esteem I did when I was really young. And so I was bullied. By 8th grade, I stopped creating my art altogether. I actually started sewing in 6th grade, making my own swimsuits and stuff, and had a lot of fun with that. But then by 8th grade, it was like I was just looking around and seeing what everyone else was doing and thinking that I wasn't good enough. And so I needed to be like them. And they were doing things like fake tripping in the halls and like laughing about it. And it wasn't funny to me, but I'm like, I guess that's what you do to be cool. And so I was just trying to imitate other people. But by 8th grade, I was a shell of myself. I mean, I couldn't make friends because I don't know, I just kept getting rejected, and it was just this whole saga. But I was a shell of myself, and I came close to committing suicide. I even had the knife up to my wrist. And it was really, looking back, I can see like I didn't really have an outlet. I didn't allow myself to have an outlet. I didn't feel like I had purpose in the world. I didn't really care. I didn't think that anyone would care if I died. And it was just a really sad time for me. But yeah, it really had to do with like stuffing down my true colors, my true expression. And just not not trusting myself or my, what came out of my mouth or what I had to say. And so I
Yeah.
stuffed it down.
Yeah, and it seems like their safety is a big part of that. When you don't feel safe or you don't feel like you belong, there's almost kind of like a threat to, do I need to change, or do I need to adapt to the situation to be okay?
Totally.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And so, yeah, I didn't feel safe. And, I luckily, my mom helped me move through it by suggesting I go to a different school the next year so I could have a fresh start. And that's what we did. I went to a new school, and I was able, she kind of helped me realize, because that was sort of her thing too, is she suffered from like lower self-esteem and depressive thoughts. And so she was like, why don't you just pretend to be confident, so that's sort of that was sort of the survival mechanism I used to get through my high school years. And things did get better, but it didn't mean that I was, authentically me and expressing myself. I was just kind of getting by and having fun as like a normal high schooler would. But, you know, that creativity inside of me, that my true colors really didn't start coming back out. I mean, college, I felt a little freer, but again, once I started on my path of transformation when I was about 25, which is, and the reason is okay, so became a fashion designer. And then at some point, I was like, something's calling me. It's more than what I'm doing. I'm enjoying this. There's creativity, but there's also a lot of red tape when you work in the fashion industry or in any of these corporate industries, at all. There's red tape. There's the bottom line. You've got to sell the designs, and so yeah, you have a little freedom, but so
Right. It's a
something.
little bit more of a pressurized container and a little less freedom. Some freedom, but yeah, like doing your own show is pretty much like, yeah,
Yeah.
the best.
Yeah, the best, right? But of course, I didn't really see that as a possibility at the time. So so something deeper was calling me, and really what it was my higher self wanting me to go on this deeper path, and really search for what would make me happy. Because not to mention that I manifested. So I learned about manifesting, and I manifested this job at Calvin Klein. So I manifested this job at Calvin Klein, and I had learned to start manifesting, and so I manifested like everything I thought I wanted. I manifested this apartment in Soho, my dream apartment, and the wardrobe to go with it. I was going to the clubs, getting through the red ropes, and just meeting cool people. I mean, I thought my life was super cool, and there was. I mean, there was a lot of fun with all of it. But one day I was sitting in my apartment, and I was just realizing, like, I'm not that happy, and it surprised me, because from my standpoint, I felt like for me, this is the American dream. Like, I'm doing everything that I was told would make me happy, and I just wasn't. And so anyway, I I really had to take a step back and go within. And that's when I started to started reading all these personal development books, and starting to realize what it is that I was truly seeking. And really what it was fulfillment. And maybe I had success, maybe I had these material things, but what I was really seeking was fulfillment. And so I was guided, over the next year or so, to start looking into a way to get into the personal growth industry, because I just found it so fascinating. Like, the inner world is vast and so much to explore. And so then I was getting, some different visions of my life coming through, and speaking on stage, different things. And I was like, well, I can't do that. And so why don't I just start with like one-on-one work? And so life coaching came into my field, and I took a training program for that, a year-long training program, with the support of my boss at Calvin. Actually, she was so supportive, and it was beautiful. And then I moved from out of that industry into my own coaching practice.
It's awesome to get that support from your boss. And even though, there's a little risk there, like
Yeah,
she could potentially lose somebody that's very valuable.
right. Yeah, and
So
we worked
when,
out for a bit. Yeah, so that I would work part time, and then I would just ease out, and she could find.
nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a nice relationship. The way we can end things sometimes can be really beautiful to see a
Absolutely.
transitionary space.
Yeah.
Yeah, allow for what's next.
Right.
Yes. So I am curious, like when you first got into coaching, like what was like the way that the fashion industry blended with that? Did you learn certain ways of working with people, or certain skills through that industry that translated really nicely into the coaching? Or
I think,
was it a little bit more of like a jump and a leap? And I'm
yeah, I
sure
mean, it was
there's crossovers.
definitely a leap. Yeah, it was definitely a leap. Know, around that time, well, I'd say for one, I wanted to help people manifest what they wanted to manifest. So that's why, becoming a coach made so much sense. Like, I'm very much a cheerleader. I want to see people like live their best lives and manifest what they truly want. And now I knew that I would help people not only manifest what maybe their ego identities wanted, but like beyond that, what their true heart desires were. But then also, I started working with plant medicines that year after I started working for myself, and those transformed my world significantly. Just being able to, yeah, like work with these plants and get these higher messages coming through. That was my way. I mean, you can meditate. There's so many ways to bring through your higher self or these divine messages, but that worked really well for me. And so, yeah, the blending of it, it's a good question, or it's a funny thing, Keenan, because there was quite a few times over the years that I was thinking like maybe I could bring fashion in a little bit. And it's still actually, something I'm considering, like now that we're talking about creativity, right? So it's been on my mind, like how can I bring creativity to more of the forefront of my life again? Coaching, it was so part of my purpose, and it has served me so well. So how can I support people in their creativity just as much as I support them moving through trauma, emotional traumas, or integrating parts of themselves? And I mean, I suppose you could argue that some of that work is creative and energetic and all of that. But I guess for myself, I'm very much like a visual creator. Although I like music too. But anyway,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's cool. I mean, like I took a little like jaunt into software engineering and computer development for a while, and well, software development, and it's like, oh wow, like coaching. I'm doing coaching now as well, and to take that like leap, so to speak, was interesting. And I think about it in terms of learning these ways of writing scripts for programs. When you hit a button, or you want to do something on a web page or within an app, it's going to trigger a set of instructions, and that set of instructions is something that was pre-programmed. It was a pattern, or like a program set up to run a certain set of basically actions. And the way I look at people is that we're I don't think that we're machines. I love this idea of like the ghost in the machine. Like there is this like spirit that like moves us and moves our bodies and so forth. But I think about it, as that, in some ways we're born, and we're born into like this womb space with our parents and our mother, and we have like a certain set of patterns and instructions that are in some ways already given to us.
Mm-hmm.
And then somebody comes over and pushes a button, whatever, however that's going to be, whether they say something or they actually touch us or whatever it is. And then a set of instructions actually runs. And there's a way of reprogramming that, of like changing the script and changing the scripts that run, right? That I think you're probably very familiar with. So I wonder if there's anything like in the process with designing like clothing and like attire that might be like part of that same creative process, where you're taking people into a field of knowing how to bring something into life, right? Because it seems like you're really focused on like how to help people manifest what's at their heart's truest calling. And I see that connection to, like, I think, when we're in alignment to our genius, that's like when we get in this place where we're actually fulfilling the things that we're most missing, and
Mm-hmm.
fulfilling and filling the voids that we perceived to be there growing up. And if you didn't know necessarily like where you were, or you didn't know like yeah, like what you wanted, or like what makes you fulfilled and happy. Like you're helping people find that, and in
Yeah.
that process sort of like finding it in yourself as well. But I guess I don't know, talking about a lot of things here, but I can see the connection a little bit of like, like with, designing a piece of clothing, like maybe that piece of clothing doesn't exist at all. And so you're playing with a space of like, how do we create something from nothing? And in
Mm,
some ways that could be something that people play with what they want to dream up in their lives. It's like, all right, I've been running this pattern and doing this thing for so long. I don't
yeah.
really know what I want. And I feel like I'm birthing something out of nothing. I need some help.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a good correlation, definitely, because when we get, have to get out of our own limitations and get into the world of possibility. A lot of times I'll have clients be like, well, I can't imagine that. I don't know what that would feel like. And that's where we have to use our creativity and our creative imagination to move ourselves into feeling something that we maybe have never experienced. Like, if someone's never felt like they were truly loved or touched in a loving way, like what would that feel like? But we are such creative beings that we have access to that if we just tune in to that, or just make it up. Like then that's really what we're doing all the time is we're just making things up. We're telling these stories, whether they're limiting stories that were passed down to you from your ancestors, or whether they're these brand new stories out of thin air, like you said, or whether your higher guidance is bringing through these new stories and places to explore, and you're going with that. We're making this all up as we go. So yeah, we are all like magical creators, constantly creating out of thin air, pretty much.
Yeah. And sometimes like, yeah, like what you want to create it, if there's infinite possibilities, it's like, how do you choose one? And I think,
Mm.
yeah, it's like, I kind of see when I think about creativity, I think about like, just like a mad scientist lab, or like one of those people that is in like a warehouse and they're like on the trapeze and they're flying in and they're throwing paint onto a canvas as they go by or something. And
Yeah,
there's just like weird stuff happening. And it's like, I think the more we experiment and we touch in with like our senses and we get like this kind of like momentum into the spontaneity
yeah,
of things, it seems like that's when like that creativity really flows, is
yes,
like, like I can like, oh yeah, and this is just coming through, and we don't really know where things come from, and we don't really need to, right? I think like the block to creativity, like in my experience, is the mind, like
yeah,
really just thinking too much and being like, well, is it that or what is it? And then it's like, really it's just like, like just smish your forehead a little and like allow it to just
sure,
whew,
sure.
like move a little bit or something, right?
Yeah. And I
Dance it
think this
out.
plays so well. Yeah, totally. And spontaneity and surrendering to what wants to be birthed through you or expressed, right, without judging it. And it ties in so well because with the point I was wanting to make earlier is just like when I was young, it was like I was judging all of my expression, all of my creativity. So I just shoved it down because I want to fit in out there. And so I feel like, with a lot of people, even if they're just opening their creative capacities and playing, with some paints and stuff, what shuts it down is judging it. Be like, that's ugly. Okay, I'm done. Put the paint set away. It's like you could be this blossoming, prolific artist, but you wouldn't know because you just shut it down, with your judgmental mind. And it's too bad because we look around and I would say most of the world's not tuned into their, full blown creativity and expression, like definitely not. But so we can't really look around and see, what are we here to embody and share and create, because it's not going to be out there. We are all such unique souls, and we are all here to create such different and yet brilliant and beautiful things. And so it's really that is the internal journey that I will continue on as I, continue to open my creative capacities and support others in that. Because it's you're not going to see it out there. If you're trying to fit in out there, you're doing it wrong. It's really it's coming from here. It's a blossoming from inside of you.
Yeah.
It wants to be expressed.
Yeah, it seems like I think that's awesome. It's yeah, I love your awareness of how you connected to like, yeah, like the judging piece, and like seeing that like that was in the way. And like that's in some ways like the judgment that you had perhaps like towards yourself, or whether other people were around you judging you, like was one of the greatest teachers, because it was like showing you all along the way, even though maybe it was painful in a lot of ways to be like out of touch with what was really true for you. But it was like the pressure cooker to like show, to really push you into a place that yeah, brings you into this awareness, which is really like a blossoming awareness, like you spoke to. um, and yeah, I think it's interesting, like with creativity, one of the things that I've been exploring is just I'm always interested in creativity in general, of course, but Stephen Chandler he's a really great coach, and I've been following his work for a little while. And he wrote a book called Creator, and it's good. It's really simple and easy, and like the way he puts things is really witty. And I like how he says, you know, like most people think that they're not creative because they measure themselves to, you know, like the person who is doing the Van Gogh. Oh, well, I'm not like a Van Gogh or a Mozart. And it's like, well, but you are a creator. And like the greatest creation really is creating yourself, you know. And
Yeah.
I like to tie that into like the purpose work as well, like that people can do. And like, you know, if you're finding like a purpose, really, like to me, like the ultimate creation or purpose like is you. And so like finding like that, like you said, like going within, not going on the outside to go find it. Because if you go look everywhere else and like try to find that thing, like what should I do, what's my purpose, what's like the thing that I want to be doing in life, it's like you are it, like it's the back of your head kind of. And so the more you really just like allow yourself to go in, I think this would be a nice segue to ask you about your process around surrender, is like, you know, what does that word mean to you in terms of creativity, and,
Yeah.
and, and kind of underscoring its importance.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. I mean, so this is perfect because, you know, when I realized, I was sitting in my apartment, right, back when I was working in fashion, and I was like, what, you know, what's missing? Oh, it's, you know, it's fulfillment. You know, it's not that what I was doing before wasn't fulfilling. So the fashion career that I had was absolutely fulfilling. It just had come to a point where I was ready to blossom something new. And so, you know, and that was moving into service work, you know, in addition to my creativity, but it didn't make my fashion experience wrong. And so what I had to do was had to surrender what I had already created, which was manifesting a career as a fashion designer, and really surrender it for at least the time being, knowing maybe I could revisit it. But there was this, you know, other calling moving through me and coming through me. And so I had to, I had to surrender what I had already spent years doing and creating. I went to school for that. I moved to New York. I mean, I built a whole life around that, basically, you know, and then whatever ego identities I had created around it, I had to unravel that too, because, you know, I got nice attention for working for Calvin Klein. I mean, people were like, that's so cool. And I'm like, yeah, yeah. So I mean, it was like kind of having to, you know, mourn a part of me, you know, a death, but really, I mean, it's like an ego death, but it was also the death of that old project and old manifestation, and then being able to birth something new. And
Yeah.
yeah, it takes surrender, you know, it really does, like birthing a baby. You got to surrender what wants to come through you. You got to let go of what you were doing before, because you can't hold on and then like try to do this over here. It's really, you got to let go.
Yeah, I feel like that seems to be like the challenge space I've found myself in, is like making that leap, because it is kind of like, all right, if I want to go over here, like do I just jump ship, or do I like, I don't
Yeah.
know, like, you know,
Just,
sort of ask some people to, you know, arrange some things so there is a ship there that I can hold on to the ship
yeah.
I'm already in, and then jump off. And I think maybe that's a
There's something
graceful way to do
expected of
it.
that too. Yeah. It's, I guess what I'm talking, yeah, I guess what I'm probably trying to say is like the holding on, from like the gripping of fear or something, but you can still loosen the grip. And then like what I did, my boss was on board to help me move into this other thing. And so I worked part-time and I built my client. So I didn't have to take the full leap, you know, which was really supportive. Um,
Totally. Yeah, I think the distinctions you and I are making are different, but I love how, yeah, like you had the smooth transition, but I think the distinction you were making was around like, if you're yeah, you're still in relationship to the old, and there's all this emotional stuff that goes along with like where you've been. And
Yeah,
so like if you cling to that, then
you
yeah,
block the
you
new.
kind of block. Yeah. Yeah, like I've been loving this idea lately. I've been feeling into this one around the idea that like making space is a creative act. And so
Mm,
like and like really getting that, because like there's a lot of times where clutter builds, and that can be on my desktop, and like all I've like got so many things I'm like got, like flowing through me, and like notes everywhere, and like there's just stuff around, and then to take the time to get to get things like ordered and clarified and cleared out and everything feels like I'm going the opposite way of creation, and like getting along on board with the idea that no, like that's actually like that is a creative act, that making of space. And I think it ties in nicely to what you were saying of like if you don't make space for your past and like the things that you've
yeah,
done and like clear that out, like what make peace with it and find the space within that, then something can open up. And maybe that's another part of like I guess what we're like pointing to with this creative process and creativity is around this idea that yeah, like it's coming through. And if there's all this stuff on your desk or whatever, then how does it come through? Like
totally.
the
Yeah.
metaphor of stuff on your
The
desk.
metaphor of like all the limiting beliefs and the rigid, obligations to trying to fit in or be like, whatever that blocks that. So you kind of have to, yeah, surrender that, make some space inside of yourself. Definitely.
Yeah. Do you have space making like practices? Like I know, and similarly with the plant medicine world, I think was a really big way that we've probably, I
Yeah.
mean, we've shared experience with that. And I think it's a big space making world.
Yeah, I mean, I guess my practice has just been about really, like for instance, like someone will invite me to do something and maybe I'll get really excited, in the past or whatever. Even today, I just, I go through this, but working on it. But, they'll invite me and I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then days will go by. I'm like, wait, is this aligned? And so I'm getting better about, asking before. But then if it's not, I can feel like, no, this isn't quite it. Let it go, bless it, bless the, people, and just keep letting go. And I've had months and months of like not receiving the divine inspiration, but somehow deep down knowing that that's exactly what I need is months of just, I don't know. I'm in the question mark. I'm making space. And it can be very uncomfortable for most people. They're like, I need to be doing something. I've got to I've got to do this. I've got to do that. And I've got to create or what, and yeah, it is about creation, but it's also about moving with the cycles of your life, because there are these creative cycles of your life, and there are times when you do just need to step back and relax, like maybe it's a summer, take the summer, just books, like
Yeah.
enjoy a drink, like give yourself a break. If you've been over creating for like 8 months, then take some space and then see what wants to, whether it's that same thing wants to reinvent itself, that project, or if it's something new that wants to come through. But without that space, you're just turning your wheels, and there is, yeah, like you said, there's no space for the new.
Yeah. And yeah, it's really great. Yeah. Like it makes me think about how, like when we're creating a new identity, yeah, like, um, we have to like use the imagination to get to the new identity, right? Like dreaming up the new identity, and
Yeah.
then the old identity sort of like fades away a little bit. Um, but I think it's like it sounds so easy. It's like, oh yeah, like make space, perfect. Like how easy is that? And then like there's also like it can be challenging, right? Because there's the patterns that show up, the stories and the scripts that are there that are like, no, I have to work. And even just the cultural programming that is embedded in us to just we've been I grew up, and I think you probably did too, like where I went to school, like woke up at 7:30 and like got home at like 5 o'clock, like every day for 18 years.
Mm.
Or well, not my whole life, like I started I guess at 5, kindergarten, but that's a long time to be programmed that this is the amount of time I need each day to be productive.
Productive.
Mhm. Right.
Get things done. Yeah. Or otherwise you're a nobody, or you're lazy, or you're a bum. These are
Hmm.
all labels we put on people. And what I'm finding in my awakening and creative journey is that it's just so extremely important to be lazy, lay in bed, just relax. And again, like I said, I'm finding it cycles, it's never going to stay like that. You're going to continue to be, creative and create things, but the level of, pressure that we put on ourselves, especially in this country, I notice, is really heavy.
Yeah, I think, yeah, definitely. And I think fundamentally we live in a creative universe. Like when I was studying yoga, spent some time in India, and my teacher highlighted this point, like God is power, and power is imagination, or is like some sequence of these things. Like power is, um, yeah, power is God, God is imagination, one of those ways that he put it. And I was like, that's so interesting to think about, like if like imagination, it's just this creative energy, it's this creative force. And I wanted to tie it into what you said. I trying to trace the thread here. Like, um, the last thing you mentioned was around the programming. Um, yeah, I guess I'm kind of just going with the idea that, um, yeah, like tapping into the fundamental like fabric of the universe helps us touch in with the natural cycles that are really taking place. Because I mean, I'm an astrologer. Like I follow the patterns and the cycles that go with, the earth. And like there actually are times where it's like, all right, this is a great opportunity. Because that's really the way I see it, is like that when planets move around in the sky, there's the energy is ripe for a certain thing, and there's a certain thing that's being created, and so to tune into that and like allow more of like nature to take its creation for you, I think
Yeah.
is like a really big part of the
Yeah.
picture. So how do you, um, experience that in your own life, or how do you coach people through
Yeah.
like tuning into their own rhythm, or like
Yeah.
creative thread?
I guess I could say yeah, I think it's a good example, which is that when I got let's see, how did this work? So I got a LinkedIn message a couple years ago, and the person was a mentor for authors, and he was just like, "Have you ever considered writing a book?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've been wanting to do that for a long time, 8 years." So I write him back, and basically we got in a conversation, realized, okay, this is a really wonderful opportunity for me to start my first book. And so I did start working with this mentor, and he had wonderful things to say. I'm still working with him, by the way. And I was trying to write the book from a certain perspective within myself, which, I mean, I'm me. I'm multidimensional. I have different aspects going on. I've got my inner teenager. I've got my inner child. I've got me. I've got my higher self. And so, but what was happening is, what do you know? I caught myself stuck in what felt stuck, but it was like a writer's block a bit, because I was getting some stuff written, but I was coming up against the perfection. And it was just taking me ages to write this freaking book. And, my mentor was like, okay, time's a ticking, it's supposed to take 6 months, and now it's been 8 months, now it's been a year, like, what's going on? I didn't know. I was like, I don't know. It's just, I just could not, get through it. So anyway, how did that go? So then I had to surrender, basically. And what happened was, I think I just had to hit a brick wall a bit, like of me trying to push this thing through, this creative thing through. It was like me, my ego, whatever, trying to push it. And it was hard and it was arduous. It was like, oh my God, this could take 10 years to write this book. So finally, I work with a Amazonian snuff, tobacco snuff called rape, or hape, if you've ever heard of it. But what it is you just you take the snuff, you put it in a little pipe thing, and you blow it up your nose. And your first time can be a little like, whoa. But basically what it helps me do is it kind of clears my field. I have an intention when I work with it, and I'm able to meditate really deep with it. And so at some point, I can't remember when, but basically I started receiving some messages, like, oh, and I'm like, oh, thank you, higher self. And then some really cool messages were coming through. I'm like, I should really record this, because I was trying to write them down, but then instead I started to record them. And then I realized at that point, after a year of trying to write this book, that I'm like, these messages could be the book. So then I started sitting down with the rapé with the intention to bring through, another segment. And I started to fill my book with this very fluid, ease-filled channeling, if you will, way. And not only do I enjoy the process, but I mean, more than that, I feel really good bringing it through, and it's easy. All I have to do is just take myself and sit down and, give myself the space to do it. So I guess with that whole story being said, it's just, I had to surrender to my soul, my spirit, who wanted to bring through this channeled text, because it's also the vibration of what I'm bringing through, and that adds to this art piece of a book. Which, when someone looks at your art or reads the book, maybe they don't know it, maybe they don't totally know that they can feel it, but they can feel the vibration of it. So if you write something, let's say, and it's like it was an arduous process and it was hard and you didn't enjoy it, that's what they're engaging with. That's what they're tuning into. And so when you look at a piece of art or read something and you can feel the vibration. And I know I've read books and they shift me. I'm like feeling my energy shift as I'm reading them. They're channeled texts, but so there's these higher beings bringing through higher vibrations. But I guess I just, that piece is important to me, is like, it's the energy behind the creation. It's about the journey. It's about you enjoying the creative process. It's not about getting it right or getting it perfect or, meaning
I
it to
love
be.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like it feels so spot on. Like, and it was going kind of along with the chiropractor I was working with. She's been on before, Amanda, and she's a network chiropractor. And I go see her. I've been seeing her weekly for a little over a year. And some of the coaching work that we've been doing, she's been coaching me through, what's going on in my body and the soul stuff. And yeah, what's present in my body is oftentimes like a gateway to your soul, right? But this idea that, like, well, where I've been landing more recently has been in this place where, like, wherever I go, whatever I do, there is my nature, right? And like, I was kind of like feeling into this idea for a long time. I don't know where it came from, but it was that it's the nature of the work. And so it's like, it's a very different idea of like the nature of the work versus the nature that you have in your work. And I feel like I'm landing more in that place of, oh, it's like my nature that I bring to all of my work. And if I'm working in a way that's rushed or busy or like not really restful, like what's there? Like what's there going on inside of me that's making my work that way versus me labeling it. That's just the nature of my work, right? Like I feel like that distinction is really important, because that is like getting in touch with owning the creativity and owning the creative process of your life or a project, like you're mentioning, like writing this book and sharing about your experience and how like the actual experience of writing it actually is practically the book, versus it being like the pressurized like story and words and things that come together that is the book. And when people talk to you about your book, like when it's finished, I can't wait to read it. And it's going to be like partially like, I think, fun to just talk to you about it versus reading it, but then even reading it and then getting to feel the energy that went into it. Yeah, I think it's amazing. It's a great way to see your process and
Thank
engage
you.
with something that's not an easy, like, it's kind of a daunting task. I started writing a book a
Yeah.
couple of years ago, and I'm like, I stopped and I was like, okay, maybe not right now. And so I tabled it, and I think that was a good move for the time.
Yeah.
Um, but I'm about to get back into it, and it's a great reminder. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. And it took creating a lot of space and time to just keep going. I mean, now that we're almost at well, let's see, year and a half mark. We're at the year and a half mark since I started it. But it's, yeah, I mean, staying dedicated to it and just giving myself the time and space when I could have judged myself and been like, well, I could be making more money, you know, or doing this or doing that. But it's truly what wants to come through me at this time. And so I'm just staying the course, even though it's taken, you know, however long. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
worth it.
And it feels like to me, like when you're writing it, when I was writing my book, I'm like, oh man, it's like I'm taking all this time away from my life, and I'm like writing this book, and like I don't even know if I'm gonna finish it. And like there's all this stuff that comes up around that process, right? But then at the same like time, like the timeless things that human beings have left on this planet are books, and like these artifacts or relics or like texts or like things that get left beyond our lifetime. And so people pass, and then we still have access to like, you know, whatever the theory of relativity, or you know, which is aspects of that we're finding are like becoming obsolete in a certain way, like from quantum physics and other things that are there. But if it wasn't for that book, like, so yeah, I guess I'm just like seeing books and like it's such a creative act because it's
Mm-hmm.
something that's living, that embodied your essence, and that also carries through time
Yeah.
in kind of amazing way. Like people can touch in with you and like what you're going through, and like,
Yeah.
yeah, get something sparked in them. That, yeah, it's cool.
Thanks. And then, yeah, one other thing I was going to share when it comes to surrender is
Mm-hmm.
that so I kept asking the question, how can I bring more creativity into my coaching? And so then earlier this year, I was like, oh, okay, you know, I want to bring together a group of women. You know, I'm called to work with women, although sometimes I do work with men. But I want to bring a group of women together. You know, but the funny thing is, when I first started with this group, I told them it's going to be like a mastermind. You know, we're going to support each other in our, you know, whether it's creative endeavors or our businesses or whatever. So that's what was starting up. But I told them, but we're going to stay very open, you know, to what this could be, because I like to see, you know, spirit come through and inspire us and see what could actually unfold, so we don't, you know, just go to in it like this is what it is. And so we stayed open. And within the first two sessions, we came together on Zoom, and there was four of us women. We realized that each one of us had a puzzle piece to creating both a song and a music video. And so, you know, one woman, for instance, had just published her first book of poetry, and she had, you know, these poems which were inspiring us, and we were realizing, well, those could, you know, be songs. They're so beautiful. She also like channeled this book, and so then my other friend Alex, she was like, well, I could sing it. And then my other friend Lisa was like, I've made music videos before. I made one for MTV. And I was like, and I love editing video, and the creativity of creating the video and the song, like everything inspired all of us basically, because we all wanted to get more into music, something that only Alex had done professionally. But the other three of us were like, we want to play with music. And so, yeah, we took, I don't know how many weeks now. It was a 3-month process to basically write the song and record it. So that's done, and it's a beautiful freaking song. Like if anything came out of our 3 months together, I'm very happy about this gorgeous song. That the words behind it and the vibration behind the poetry is just very, very beautiful, very heart opening. Her book is all about heart opening poetry. And so we have the song, and now we're each of us taking video, and we're gonna, you know, record ourselves or have someone record us in these, like, you know, silky gowns or silky whatever in nature, and then we're going to put the videos together. And yeah, I mean, it's not going to be like MTV production, but it's definitely going to be our expression, and a collaborative one at that, which is really fun and cool.
Highly creative.
And so anyway, we had to surrender to what that group was going to be. No one could have guessed that that's where that was going to go.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's such a good message, because I feel like that's what happens, right? It's like the best, some of the greatest things that get created, it seems, are not birthed initially. They're like, it's like, oh, I'm gonna go down this rabbit hole and I think I'm gonna create this. And if you really can stay open, like you said, I think that's when a lot of the things, sometimes like a flash of insight comes through, and you're just, and even if it was a thing that didn't happen, right? Like you started as a mastermind, and it's like, oh yeah, we're just going to support each other in our professional realms, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, this, and then you stayed open. I can't wait to hear it. So where can we listen to this song?
Yeah, so we'll launch it once we have the video, but absolutely, I'll share it with you. Yeah,
Awesome.
it'll be good.
Great. Well, it's been super fun talking with you, Danielle. You're such a beautiful soul. Thanks for joining me today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Um, yeah, like, is there anything else you want to share today about your story, your journey? You want people to know anything?
Um, I guess not yet. I will, once the book comes out and stuff, I'll have more to talk about. If
Yeah.
anyone is looking for, transformational soul coaching services, it is such a passion for me still. And so, particularly if you're looking to open up your creative capacities, you can just visit my website at daniellekort.com. K-O-R-T is spell last name, but I'm sure you can put it in the words on the video, Keenan.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes for you. Awesome. Yeah, well, we'll catch you on your website or elsewhere, and yeah, I look forward to seeing you in a couple months in Florida.
Me too. Very
All
excited.
right.